You're watching Sunday Morning Matters on KC24, your local election headquarters.
The good, the bad, and the ugly. The $262 billion budget now signed and in motion, but does it deliver for Californians in this new era, which is the post-pandemic era? So let's break down the budget with our panel this week. Dan Walters with Cal Matters and Laura Cordy with the Sacramento Bee. So we have a lot to digest here, from water to wildfires to eviction moratoriums, another round of stimulus checks. And Laura, I'll start with you here. Does the budget address the everyday needs of Californians as we head into this post-pandemic era?
You know, that's something that Democrats in the legislature and Newsom are really trying to do. You see it with the $1.5 billion worth of grants for small businesses that have struggled. We're also going to see $600 stimulus checks sent to Californians who make less than $75,000 a year. But there are still concerns. Republicans say that it doesn't pay down unemployment debt or spend enough on fire prevention. Vince Fong, who is a Republican assemblyman, said it doesn't tackle the critical and fundamental needs that every California expects them to tackle. So there is a lot of money to be spent, but whether it's being spent in the right way is still a matter of debate.
You know, Dan, you have covered the state of California in politics. I don't want to date you, and I'm sorry if I do, for decades, but I will say this. There's no money for water storage, yet Governor Newsom did recognize there is a drought emergency, especially here in the Central Valley. Could this decision, as you mentioned, wildfire prevention could come back to haunt Governor Newsom, but what about water storage, farmland? Could that?
Ordinarily, if you're spending money on water storage, it's not out of the state general fund. It's ordinarily money from bond issues, because these water projects are to be repaid by the people who buy the water, and that's the way those things operate. So it shouldn't be surprising that there's not any money for water storage there. Although we certainly could use some more storage, I don't think that this budget was probably ever going to be the place for it. I think the real tone here about this budget is this. There's always a tension between the present and the future. And this budget is oriented more towards the present. And the present is Governor Gavin Newsom faces a recall election. Mm-hmm. So he wants to put that money out in a way that will make people have warm and fuzzy feelings about him. Hence the payments to millions of Californians, hence the support for small business and so forth. The future, on the other hand, is you talk about water, you talk about fire prevention, you talk about a lot of issues that are off in the future. But this is a budget for the here and the now, because this is an election year and the governor is essentially seeking re-election or reaffirmation. And that's indicated by his campaign ads, which stress those here and now features of the budget, such as the golden state stimulus, mm-hmm. the handing out of checks, and the small business. That's what he's emphasizing in his campaign, which tells you where his budget priorities really stood going into this budget season.
Well, we all remember in the last few years that the state budget was passed, a lot of money was put in there for high-speed rail, but zero this time around. I know there's federal money coming in, and Laura, I'll come back to you on it. As Dan mentions, this is all about the here and now, but what does it say for those who voted to say we want high-speed rail? There's no money in it. What's the future of the bullet train? Did Governor Newsom gaffe on this?
You know, he asked for another $4.2 billion on Proposition 1A spending for the high-speed rail, and the legislature doesn't want to include it. It sounds like negotiations are still ongoing, so there could be some money coming to the rail, but you know, it's no secret that this project is over schedule and over budget. They've sunk billions of dollars into it. It'll take billions of dollars to construct. But at this point, if they don't get that $4.2 billion that Newsom wanted, a rail authority spokesperson said that the leadership in the legislature, without that money, they're going to be forced to start laying off workers next spring. It could stall the project even further. As you alluded to, the Biden administration just returned $1 billion in funding for the rail, which Newsom praised. But whether we're going to get that state money has yet to be seen, and that could have real consequences for this project.
I want to finish with this. We've been talking a lot about the recall, and obviously now we're in full motion, and that means candidates who want to jump in will now have until July 16th, so just less than a couple of weeks now, to finalize their paperwork and jump in. Is there a name out there that hasn't been called yet, or we haven't reported yet, that may jump into this race to make it maybe a little bit more interesting? We've heard from Caitlyn Jenner. We obviously know about Kevin Faulconer and John Cox. Is there a bigger name out there that may come to the forefront? Dan, I'll start with you.
I don't think there's a bigger name. Larry Elder, talk show host, is talking about it. He's got quite a following, but he's not that well known among the general public. No, I don't think there's any big name to come out here. And in fact, I think maybe the Republicans are shooting themselves in the foot by having so many candidates. Their best chance of winning this situation would be to have one candidate, just like they had Arnold Schwarzenegger 18 years ago against Gray Davis, that can focus the opposition and really make it a kind of a two-person race, the governor against the leading candidate. Mm-hmm. By dissipating that, I think the Republicans are blowing whatever chance they had, and it wasn't a big chance to begin with, whatever chance they may have of winning this thing is probably being blown by having so many candidates.
Laura, I got about 20 seconds here. Caitlyn Jenner mentioned that she called Arnold Schwarzenegger to help her make up her mind. And is Caitlyn Jenner the person to back for the Republican Party?
I think it depends on who you ask. I think that few people would say that she has the kind of star power that Arnold Schwarzenegger had. He also had quite a bit more political experience prior to running. This is her first foray. She doesn't have quite the same name recognition despite being a celebrity. I think that she has a smaller following than some of the other Republican candidates, but who knows? We have 60 days, 75 days until this election. Anything can happen.
All right. Laura Cordy, Dan Walters, thank you so much for being on Sunday Morning Matters. Happy 4th of July. All right, coming up, unclassified. Did we learn anything from the Pentagon's investigation on UFOs, or is the government trying to hide something? Famed UFO journalist George Knapp joins me exclusively next.